What is seller financing and how does it work? Welcome back. Now in this episode, I'm going to answer your question. What is seller financing and how does that work? I'm Ted Thomas, and since 1970, I've been in the real estate business, in different parts of the business, but the last 30 years, I've been involved in tax liens and also tax deeds. This business works for everybody that gets involved, from the county to the buyers to the sellers. Okay, I'm going to point out how to make money with seller financing and the step-by-step process of how this works. Now, this system works to make people independently financially okay. Why? Because you get payments for a long period of time. For example, with seller financing, you're going to be the bank, and the bank gets paid when they put the deal together, and then they get continuous payments after that. So I generally recommend 10-year financing or 15, and you'll see you could be getting checks for that amount of time. All right, this is going to be a very interesting lesson. Stay with me. I'll be right back. Okay, what is seller financing and how does it work? I'm going to show you how to take a small amount of money with a small amount of training, and you can be making significant amount of money. It's like 40% a year on your money by doing seller financing after you buy at tax defaulted auctions. Now, I'm pretty fond of saying to people, anybody can buy at a tax auction. Now, how can anybody do that? Well, I'll tell you. First of all, these auctions sell properties at 60, 70, and 80% discounts, and they have no mortgage. Now, if you can buy for 60, 70, 80% discount and there's no mortgage, you got a good chance of being able to make yourself some money. Most instances, the county treasurer will delete the mortgage. So that means you get a mortgage-free property. Now, there isn't anybody that's looking at me right now that wouldn't like to have a mortgage-free property. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about seller financing and how does that process work. So my students eliminate a lot of the difficult parts of being in real estate. The two difficult things in real estate are selling and getting the financing. And that's what stops the real estate business. About every 7 or 8 years, we'll have some kind of recession because the banks shut down the financing and the properties are really hard to sell without financing. And so the brokerage community that usually has about 1 million real estate agents, brokers, and realtors, well, that can drop all the way down to about 400,000 of them nationwide just when we have one of those recessions. All right, so the big problems are number one, selling, and number two, the financing. So let's eliminate both of those problems. We can do that by doing one business, and that business is buy from the tax liens and tax defaulted auctions. Now, those tax defaulted auctions are discounted properties. Now, every county in America will have those and is authorized to have them every single year. So now, if you buy at that auction and you can buy for pennies, 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar, well, then you can sell for significantly amount higher than that. You don't have to get retail, so you could actually buy low and you could sell low. And then when you did that, you could sell with financing. All right, so now if you want to be the financier on the property, you could be the banker and work once to put the sale together. Once you get the sale together, you're going to get sales money for the rest of the 5 or 10 years that you decide to finance. Not unusual for people to finance a property for 10 or 15 years, which is exactly what I recommend. All right, so tax liens and tax deeds are a very small part of the real estate business. But the big part of the real estate business is financing, installment sales, and that kind of thing. So the regular real estate business has agents working, they have loan brokers working, they have people working in the title companies, they have people doing the title searches, they have people that do home inspection. There's a lot going on in the real estate business, and all those things in a traditional sale costs the seller a lot of money. In other words, when you want to sell, you're probably going to need a broker. You might even need a loan broker. You might need a title company. You might need a home inspector. You might need an appraisal. All those things are going to come out of your money and your profit. But if you be the financer yourself, in other words, installment sales or financing the property yourself, you don't have to have any of those people. You can do every bit of it yourself. So this is a very lucrative business. A lot of people don't know about it, but there'll probably be, in the course of a year, 10 million of these loans made by sellers because they want to make extra money. Now, I'm going to give you exact examples of that before I finish so that you can see it. So the average home in the United States today, somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000, according to Zillow. Well, we're going to go to the tax defaulted auction, and we're going to try to buy 60, 70, 80% below the tax assessed value. Now, the bankers don't really want to do business in our market. Why? Because a lot of our properties that go to auction are under $100,000. The banking industry is pretty standardized, pretty computerized, and what they really want to do is they want cookie cutter deals. They want the exact client with a perfect credit score, and they want properties that are in very good condition, that no title problems with them, and no physical problems with them. All right, we're going to buy properties at tax defaulted auction. Some of them are used and abused, but there's still an audience, and there's still a crowd of people that want those. Who are the people that want to know those? Well, the people that want to know those properties are available are people that just been through a divorce, or people that lived in those neighborhoods, or people that have been through a bankruptcy, because they're not going to be able to buy in the country club. Now, they might have a perfectly good job, but if they've been through a divorce or a bankruptcy or anything like that, well, they're going through a lot of problems. And their problems are all going to show up on their FICO score. Now, the FICO score is what the institutions and what the banks base everything on. If you've got a bad FICO score, there's no chance that you're going to buy a house from an institution. However, we can sell a house, we could sell or finance to those people and not take a lot of risk. How do we keep the risk down? Number one, we sell it on a contract. That simply means if they don't pay us, then we just kick them out, just like they're on a rental agreement. All right, so we don't meet exacting schedules, and we don't meet exacting perfect properties. We're going to have properties that's slightly used, slightly abused, but we own them outright. We bought them right. So if you're buying at 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, you don't have to get all your money back right away. So I teach my clients, buy it low and sell it low, and then do an installment sale. So you're going to be the seller, and you're going to make the contract, and when you make the contract, you can put what you want in the payments. So it's very easy to figure the payments out, because you can ask the person that's buying, what can you afford for a down payment, and what can you afford for a payment? Well, they want to get their payments as low as possible, and they want to get their down payment as low as possible. And they usually don't have a very big down payment. All right, that's not a problem, because you can have them build the down payment, or you can stretch their payments out. The point is, you can make a deal right then and there. You don't have to wait for the bankers. You don't have to wait for the brokers. You don't have to wait for home inspections. You don't have to wait for title companies. You could buy a property at auction this afternoon, and tomorrow afternoon, you could actually put the deal together. Why? Because you're going to provide the financing, and you can do exactly what you want to do. It's all perfectly legal, and anybody can do it. Now, when you go to a tax auction, there's going to be some junk there. Forget about that. You do want to buy slightly used and abused. Are you going to get A properties? I doubt it, because the A properties get bid up. You don't want that. You want to get a property that's a B minus, C or a D, needs a little work, but these are properties that sell relatively quick. All right, now you know about fixer-uppers. A lot of people want to do fixer-uppers. I'm not against it, but I prefer to buy it low and sell it low and let someone else do that. So you could let that someone else do that fixer-upper, and you could sell it to them on an installment sale. So they could get in low and they could make payments to you. All right, now the foreclosure business that's on television every night, what are they doing? They're making that very glamorous. There's a beautiful girl there, and there's contractors going, and this guy's running big saws, and the sawdust running. There's contractors doing pool work. They're doing fireplaces. They're painting. They're cleaning. A lot of things going on. 29 minutes later, what wasn't such a hot house, a C minus, is suddenly a mansion. Well, that isn't quite the way the business works, unless you got a ton of money. If you got a ton of money, well, you'll put it in doing fixer-uppers, I can assure you of that. So what is this seller financing? It's simply you being the bank and you figuring out a sale that will work. The sale will work for the person if you can work with them on a down payment and working with them on payment. These people don't care how long they have to pay for it, but they've got to get a low payment to get in there. Now, seller financing has been around for decades. It works, and it works perfectly for both parties. In other words, you can get good long-term payments out of it, and they can get low payments to get started. So seller financing is all about being accommodating. So how do you do that? Well, you put it on your sign outside and say that you're going to accept installment sales. Now, also, you can put it on Craigslist that you're going to sell the property there. You can put it on eBay. You can put it on Facebook Marketplace. And in all cases, you could say installment sale available. That will attract about 20% of that market. So about 25% of the market cannot go to a financial institution and get what they want. So what do they want? They want a place to live. They don't expect a country club. They need help getting started. They've got a poor credit score. All right. So you don't care about the credit score. You care that they're going to be able to make the payment and that they're going to sign a contract that's going to be 5 or 10 years. In other words, you're going to make it easy, and you're going to make it easy enough to get them in there and get them making payments. Now, if they stop making payments, so what? You're going to get your property back. You're not going to give them a deed to that property until such time as they're ready to move. They're ready to move out or ready to move up or whatever they want to do. If they want to pay for the whole thing, they can do that. Now, remember, we're buying at the sale, the tax auctions, and we're trying to get 60, 70, 80% discounts. All we want to get out of these people is we want to get a decent down payment and get a contract with them to pay us monthly for as long as possible. If we're buying houses under $100,000, the bank isn't going to compete with us because the bank wants those cookie cutter deals at $250,000 and $300,000. So you're kind of getting the idea. So here's a perfect example of seller financing. All right, we've got a property comes up for sale. It's a $100,000 property. All right, that's what the tax assessed value is. But what if you could buy it for 20 cents on the dollar? Well, there's a lot of difference between $20,000 down and a $100,000 property. All right, so you don't have to sell that for the $100,000. If you can, go ahead. We tell people sell it low so you can do it fast. Now, I can assure you, if you put it up for sale for $50,000, you're going to sell it quickly. Well, you can not only sell it quickly, but you could also accept payments on it. But you make $30,000. So you bought it for 20, you sold it for 50. Go back and do another one. You can do as many of those as you want. There's going to be plenty of them. They're going to be in bread and butter neighborhoods. They're not going to be in a country club. They're going to be bread and butter. The people who lived there before, they'll go back there. They might have started there. Now they're going through trouble, so they'll go back there. All right. It's the same business that Target is in, Costco is in, and Walmart. They're going to have the best deals, and that's why people go there. They buy it low. They don't have the best of everything, but they can accommodate lots of clients, and they'll do installment sales all day long. So I'm going to give you an example of one of those installment sales right now. So I'll tell you about it, and then I'll actually put numbers up so you can see it. So let's say there was a single-family home. It's about 45 years old, and it's coming up for auction. And the tax assessed value is $55,000. Now, this is a perfect example like one of my students would do. All right, so the students go there. They want to buy that property. They know that they're going to put up signs. They know they're going to have to clean it up. They know they're going to put on Craigslist and eBay and what I've talked about. So it's tax assessed value. They're going to put it up for auction for whatever they can get. Well, my students bought the property for $8,000. Not bad. All right, they bought it for $8,000. So they put it back into the marketplace with big signs and with Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and they got a $35,000 offer. Wow. Well, before they could sell it, they had to go tidy it up. So they put $8,000 in, then they put another $4,000 to clean up, get rid of all the trash. So now they're in at $12,000, and they have an offer at $35,000. Well, you could easily accept that. The math is they're going to make themselves $20,000. Not a bad deal. Going to make $20,000. But the buyer wants an installment sale. So they suggested to the buyer, okay, you want installments? We'll give you installments of $450 a month, and we'll do that for 10 years. And the buyer said, that's fine with me. So the buyer took their offer, they wrote it all up, they wrote a contract. So in 120 months' time, that's 10 years, they're going to receive $54,000. Now, if you remember, they only paid $12,000. Folks, that's a $40,000 profit. They did all that during the month of December when all the brokers and everyone told them, look, you can't sell properties in December. You can't do it in Thanksgiving. In November, there's no way. They did it because they priced it right and they gave the installment sale. That installment sale pays them $450 a month for the next 10 years. Folks, that's a lot of money. Absolutely a lot of. Should you do the same thing? Yes. Just make sure that that person that's buying takes care of the taxes and takes care of the insurance. All right, now it's time for me to button it up. So I'm going to take a couple of questions before I finish. Does each county have its own rules? Well, that's really true. And in some states, different counties will have different rules throughout the state. What happens if tax lien certificates at the auction if they're not all sold? Well, if they're not sold, the local government will put those on a list, and they could call it leftovers or surplus or something like that. And then you can buy those, what they call over the counter. In other words, you walk into the county office and buy it over the counter like you would, you go in a place and you buy things and they hand things across the counter. So there's plenty available. All right, now I'm about to finish up, and I want to tell you two things before I leave. And that's number one, you don't want to buy properties at auction unless you've looked at those properties. They could have a fire. They could have any number of things like a windstorm. You could have a hurricane. You could have a flood. Something could happen to that property. Or that property might be right next to a chicken farm. You might not want that property if you got there and saw that chicken farm. So don't buy a property unless you've already seen it. The other big mistake that people make at auctions, and it's a severe one, is they buy property before they figure out their exit strategy. So don't go there to bid to win and get to be the higher bidder. Go there and know what you're going to bid so that you have margin for profit. Now, my name is Ted Thomas, and what I want you to know is right below me, there's a gift. It's a free gift. You ought to take advantage of that.